Right. Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem Karkadash, and the Heavenly Father. The true name is Yahweh, and His unbegotten Son Ba'Hashem, the name of Mashiach Yahushua. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, Galash Wakadash Watum. And I say Barak Thumb to the elders and apostles, Wa'akim Ma'akwaf, and I say Shalom. And this is a sit-down lesson of the prophecy updates as of June the 9th, 2025 on this Monday afternoon. And as we've been seeing, the Russia-Ukraine situation been expanding. It's going to escalate more and more. As I believe it was a recent prison swipe is going to take place once again between Russia and Ukraine, despite the fact they're trying to have progress to have peace talks between both sides, but you're still going to see, the rising tension between Russia and Ukraine. We're definitely seeing signs of that. As I add a side note to that, and this is a news article from RT.com, and it reads, as of June 9th, 2025, it says Russia conducted retaliatory strikes on Ukraine airfield, MOD reports. The attack was described as a part of Moscow's retaliation for Kyiv's acts against national air forces. It says the Russian forces have conducted an overnight strike on a Ukrainian airfield in the western Rogvino region. The defense ministry in Moscow reported on Monday. The strikes are part of Moscow retaliation for Ukrainian attacks against Russian air forces, the statement says. It says last week, Ukrainian intelligence service claims that had delivered a significant blow to the Russian air power by bombing airfields deep inside the country with a short-range first-person view drones launched from the concealed counterpartments in freight cars. It says Moscow has accused of Kyiv of security exaggerating the effect of the operation. Russian military has framed several of its recent operations as a retaliatory for the drones plot, as well as the ready derailment of the passenger train, which occurred on the same day. Investors have said a forensic evidence unequivocally link in the incident to the heavy border efforts to sabotage a transport infrastructure and demoralize the Russian public. The latest retaliations risk including an attack on the air near the town of Dombinio, as well as the bombing of Ukrainian weapons plant locations where Ukraine kamikazes drones were being assembled, motions, deposits, and other military targets. Ministry said on Monday. Earlier in the day, the ministry reported overnight that Russian Defense Forces has intercepted 79 Ukraine kamikaze drones, which Kyiv launched daily against targets deep inside Russia. One of which recently operation caused a major blackout in the border Kursk region, according to authorities. It says that Ukraine media claims that the Russian used hypersonic launch Kanzerha rockets to strike the Dubino airfield, by Moscow did not specify the weapons involved. Kyiv reportedly stationed some of the Western's donated the F-16 fighter jets in Rivmo region along the Soviet legacy warplanes. It's the book of Joel, Ecclesiastes. It's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1. Time for everything. It says, verse 1, and a time. It says, to everything there is a season and a time of every purpose of heaven. Right, because we live in modern day biblical signs and signs of times. And we see in nuclear escalation, the tensions are heating up between Russia and Ukraine. I'm going to drop down to verse 8. Ecclesiastes 3, verse 8. In a time to love, in a time of HATE, in a time of war and time of peace. Right, so we're definitely living in a time of war, which is building up these nuclear wars are heating up between these nations. We're going to see more signs of that. As it says again, Russia conducted retaliatory strikes on Ukrainian airfield, mod reports. It says Zelensky's know he's losing, U.S. Senator reports. Lavrov suggests moving the UN HQ. It says one killed by Ukrainian missile attack on Russian Culture Center, government reports. It says China is optimistic with diplomatic relations with India, ambassador reports. It says Kremlin names reason for new offense inside Ukraine. It says the Kremlin named reason for the new offense inside Ukraine. The defense minister earlier reported that Russian tank units have entered the then Proskovy region. It says the Russian recent advance into Ukraine's Denbritsky, if I pronounce that right, region is a part of a push by Moscow to establish a buffer zone on the front line. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said on Sunday, Russia's Ministry of Defense announced of the 90th Armored Defense and reached the western border on the Donetsk People's Republic, continuing its offense into the neighboring territories. The next day, it's reported new territory gains in the area without providing details. On Monday, Peskov confirmed that the recent advance was aimed to establish a buffer zone in the front line. And one of its goals, of course, but is we talking about a no-shit cease of the military action, if I pronounce that right. It says themselves. And then your question should be addressed to the defense minister. The spokesperson said the intention to create a buffer zone was announced by the Russian President Vladimir Putin last month. He delivered his remarks amid recurring Ukrainian drones and artillery strikes targeting civilians in the Donetsk as well as the Kursk, Belgrade, and Bryansk region. Following his comments, the Russian military also reported advance in the Ukraine Sumy region across the border. It says the Time reported of the news Russia's advance in the Dnipropetrovsk region as a significant symbolic and strategic blow for the Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian Senator Andrea Klaskos said that has started an active phase in the denationalization in the region. It comes on the heels of 2 rounds of the Russian-Ukraine talks in Istanbul. Moscow insists that the lasting peace settlements can only be reached only at the recognized Crimea, the Donetsk, and the Lugansk People's Republic incursions in Zaporozhye regions as a part of Russia while committing a neutrality. Lviv has consistently refused to consider any territorial concessions. It's the book of Ezekiel. This is Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 4. It says, "And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth in all thy army, horse and horsemen, all of them clothed all sorts of armor, even the great company of bucks and shields, and all." Yep, it says all them handling swords. Right, so Russia is going to be continually in that warlike mindset because Russia represents the bear in Ezekiel the 38th chapter. So this is a future prophecy we see in progress because you're still going to have Russia in that warlike mindset, Russian Federation, Russia versus NATO, versus the EU, Russia versus Ukraine. That's going to continue to increase. Once again, I'm going to get to that Joel. Yep, this is a prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty man, let all the men of war draw near, and come up." Right, that's what we're seeing with the Russia-Ukraine situation. And all these other nuclear escalations are heating up. And that's what we're seeing. This is continuing to be proclaimed among the armies of the nations, which is the Gentiles and the armies of the nations. They are continuing in that warlike mindset. Joel 3 verse 10, "Beat your plowshares with swords, and plenty of the spears, let the weak set grown." Right, because we're seeing these are armies of nations rise against one another and building up their nuclear capability against one another and teaming up with one another, going against the adversaries. That's what we're seeing. Because everything is balanced inside the Heavenly Father House. So we're definitely living in those modern day nuclear escalations and tensions are heating up between the nations. And we're definitely are in those times, just like it says in Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter. Yeah. Yeah. It's good. Yep, I already got him for this one. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. Yep, so it says again, Kremlin names reasons for a new offense inside Ukraine. It says news article June the 9th, 2025, and it reads, it says Putin praises BRICS for dictate-free cooperation. Russia is working with fellow members of the group to create a system of equal and mutual beneficial partnership, the president says. It says Russian President Vladimir Putin has held cooperation between the BRICS members, stating that Moscow plans to continue working with the participants of the group to develop a system of equal international cooperation. BRICS was established in 2009 by Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and with South Africa joining in 2010. The blocs later expanded, including Egypt and United Arab Emirates and Ethiopia, India, and Iran. Together with our partners, primarily with the BRICS Association, will extend to continue working with building a effective system to equal and mutually beneficial international cooperation, freedom for all forms of discrimination, dedicate and sanction pressure, Putin said on Monday in a greeting letter addressing the participants, organizations, and guests in the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, the SPIEF. It says this year SPIEF opens on June the 18th and runs through the 21st. The 20th annual evening event is participant to attract thousands of participants from Armenia, Africa, Iran, Vietnam, EU, India, Kazakhstan, China, Latin America, Moldova, Mongolia, Thailand, Uzbekistan as members as the Eurasia Economic Union and the Associated Southeast Asia Nations. In 2024, the BRICS grew account of 40% of the world's economy. Purchasing power, the PPP terms, according to the IMF data, the bloc members now represents more than 2/5 of global's population. Last year, speaking at a meeting of BRICS security representatives of St. Petersburg, who noted that 34 nations have expressed interest in joining cooperations with the group in one or more or another. Earlier this year, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that the economic bloc has become the leading platform of aligning the interests of global majority. He emphasized that BRICS continues to attract countries from the global south and east, as many seeking equity and mutually beneficial partners in the sake of a joint development. Right, that's going to form, this new form of currency, as these nations is not going to trust the euro dollar and the American dollar, which we've seen that previously, as we've been seeing, them been turning away from the American dollar. Now we understand the American dollar still got high value, and the euro dollars will too. But as we see in times progresses on, we've seen all these nations are turning away from the American dollar and the euro dollars will too, because they're coming with a new form of currency, with this new digital currency. They're going to create a economic cooperation, freedom economic cooperation, and come with their forms of currency and a beneficiary partnership for all nations to band together, come together from the economical perspective. That's what we've been seeing. And this is going to usher in, this digital currency. This is going to usher in that RFID, CHIP. That's going to usher in more of this artificial intelligence. That's going to usher in more 15-minute cities. So we're leaning towards that direction because, we're living in a digital society as it is already. Because the new form of currency is going to be backed by gold and silver, and it's going to be backed by digital dollar, digital money, and digital cash. The dude just can flat out break. See that about a lot of guys in this lineup. Louis Bastoni, who's hitting now, and he sets it toward the gap in right center. Little flare, and it gets down for a hit. So that was previous news articles. Let's go to air news. Yeah, these guys have come out with their hair on fire. Henry Santowski is going to get a visit. Pretty good pitching coach. Well, the last game of the year, they do not win, so it's all hands on deck. Some movement down there that they can try to get. He's going to get down there. He's one of the closers. Lucas Stoney, the transfer from Cal State Fulton. He had 9 hits in the Oxford Regional with 9 runs batted in. It didn't make the all-regional team. And the whole reason that Duke is hosting the Super this weekend is because Murray State upset. Let's check the news now. There you see bullpen starting to stir around the Blue Devils. 2-0 Murray State here in the first. 2 on, still just 1 out. And here's Bill Beerland. The hands fell wrong. Left-handed hitting catcher. Had a great day yesterday with 4 runs batted in. Scots who made it 4 for 9 in the Super Region. A 2-run double in the Racers, 9-run 7th yesterday. 2 on 4 here. And he sends this one into right field. Base hit. Ortega is going to put the stop sign up for Decker. And he'll hold it up. Bases loaded now for Murray State. This is from Diplomatic by Laura Rosen. This is Trump and U.S. Iran to meet Thursday. Iran has not yet on its terms. This is from the Miami Herald. It says Russia no longer sees U.S. as a chief enemy. Polls find see what the nation's top list. It says a war zone news article reads. It says Russia giving North Korea the 136 attack drone production capability. Right, because we've been seeing the alliance between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. It says Trump says responsible to nuclear proposal unacceptable and altered. Because I believe there was another news article that took place as of today. I believe I seen a news article where you had, I believe Iran has rejected, the United States proposal of a nuclear agreement. I believe they have rejected that latest offer because the latest offer was last Saturday, and then you had a recent offer they rejected once again. So according to the Trump administration, said they're going to meet again this Thursday for more talks. So we're going to see how that plays out. Third straight left-hander to start in this series. Don't push. Game one, Kyle Johnson yesterday, and now Zach. It says, this is from Newsmax. It says, NATO rough warns of Russia threats urge armed surge. Right, because we've been seeing the rising tensions been heating up between Russia and NATO, even though it's been on and off, but we see definitely the tensions are definitely been there. And this is from the it says Pentagon sets to deploy 700 Marine to Los Angeles, right? Especially with those protests that have been taking place over there in Los Angeles ever since Friday of last week and on into this new week. And it says from the NATO Security General Mark Rutte, if I pronounce the name right. It says on Monday warned that Russian President Vladimir Putin could threaten the alliance within 5 years. I mean, it's going to be less than that. I would say probably less than a couple of months or 6 months or a year. It says calling for a massive increase in defense spending and military capabilities across members' nation. Political report. It says speaking at the Chatham House in London, Rusty said the military alliance must prepare for a future where danger will not disappear, even when the war in Ukraine ends. It says it's not like kids ourselves. We are on the eastern flank now. Rutte says, and keep this in mind. I would say like a week ago, you had the NATO been building up their military presence over there in the northern flank and the eastern flank, while Russia was building up their military over there in the borders, not too far from NATO over there in the eastern flank and northern flank as well too. So we definitely seeing the tensions are heating up, throughout the years, and as of recently, it says just like I brought out that Ezekiel the 38th chapter, because Russia is going to be in that warlike mindset. It says extensive range of Russian missile system. Rutte, it says former of Netherlands Prime Minister, who now leads the NATO at a critical moment for global security, used this speech to urge for a dramatic. It says for a dramatic to scale up the defense investments. He emphasized the urgent need for NATO allies to meet new military capability targets, including missile defense, such as land forces and logistic increases. The fact is, we need to quantum leap in our collective defense. The fact is that we must have more forces and capabilities to implement our defense plans in full, what he said. He added that NATO must increase air and missile defense by 400% and acquire thousands of more armored vehicles and tanks and millions of more artillery shells, while doubling support service like transportation, supplies, medical systems. And the address comes ahead of a high-stakes NATO meeting later this month in the Hershk. It says, which will mark the return of President Donald Trump to NATO stage. Trump, who has criticized the alliance, right? Because he criticized the European Union and NATO to, build up their more military, spend more military in building up their more military defense of the ongoing tension that they have with Russia and their allies. It says Trump, who has long criticized the alliance for failing to meet spending commitments and expected to push for a new defense spending targeting of 5% of the gross domestic products. The the proposed target was allocate 3.5% to direct military spending and 1.5% for other defense-related activities. This represents a significant increase from NATO's current 2% benchmark, a goal only recently met by the countries such as Italy and Spain more than a decade after it adopted a 2014 Wales uh, summit, convincing some southern European nations to support a new benchmark was difficult. Convincing Madrid was expecting tricky. One NATO official said nothing Spain's view that Russia is not an immediate threat, despite the fact concerns no members stated is expected to veto in against the new objective. Russia also addressed the speculation that the U.S. could reduce its military presence in Europe as it shifts strategic focus towards China. It says, "Would there a sudden withdrawal of the U.S. troops? No," Woody said, through the acknowledged Washington growing attentions to the Indo-Pacific region. That shift will be a step-by-step approach that we will leave no capability gaps for NATO and Europe. Governments are moving ahead with procurement plans for drones, warships, and long-range missiles and aircraft, including at least 700 U.S.-made F-35 fighter jets. He added, it could beat when it comes to ammunition Russia produced in 3 months and what the whole of NATO produced in a year. Yep, this is the prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty man, by all the men of war, draw near, let them come up. Joel 3, verse 10. Beat your plowshares and the swords and the plenty hooks at the spears, and let the weak sounds groan. And this, so you still gonna have NATO building up their military. It's more military spending. The European Union is gonna do the same thing. NATO is gonna do that as well too. Of the ongoing amending tensions they have against NATO. Against Russia. What was that scripture I was about to bring out? Oh yeah, Isaiah 13 verse 17. This is Isaiah chapter 13 verse 17. It says, "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which they should not regard silver, and as for gold, they should not delight in it." So you're still gonna have Russia versus the United States, despite the fact they're trying to have peace talks. But you're still gonna have heavy escalation between these nations because the heavy falls are gonna stir up the Medes, which is Russia against Babylon, and as for gold and silver, they should not delight in it. As you had Trump criticize long-time NATO to building up their military defense, right along with EU as well too, of the ongoing tensions that they have against Russia and Belarus. And this is Isaiah. Yep, this is the prophet Isaiah chapter 17 verse 1. It says the prophecy about Damascus, the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus take away from me the city, and it shall be as one heat. Because this is a future prophecy as well too. Because you still gonna have the pro-Iranian groups and the Dragons of Arabia and the Syrian armies all of them teaming up together going against the Israel Defense Force over there over in Syria. So this is a future prophecy of Isaiah 17 verse 1. So with that, hopefully this sit down lesson was edifying of this prophecy updates as of June the 9th, 2025 on this one Monday. Yep, on this Monday afternoon. So hopefully this was edifying. And with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Karkadash, and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son Ba'ashem, the name of Mashiach Shai. Those are their true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the last one Kadash Mutan. And I say Barak Thumb to the elders and apostles, Barakim, Barakwaf. Till next time, I would say Shalom. He has been playing hurts, Grant. Get on the right hand of the regionals, missed the regional final.